Jane.
And we're SpielMill.
And this is our channel.
Yeah.
So this is our next video on our shelf of shameful opportunity, or shelf of shame, shelf of opportunity, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and so we got some new subscribers, and just to kind of catch you up. So Jane has a chronic illness, and we were really unable to play games for a couple years. And so we've got a big backlog because all the Kickstarters still came in, and there was a little bit of retail therapy when we couldn't play games, which is buying some games. So we got a big backlog. So we're kind of going through it, and we're going to talk about the games that are new to us.
Right. And welcome to the channel.
Welcome to the channel, yeah.
So, so this is fun. We have 5 new games that we've played, and some big, heavy ones, so that's why it's not more.
Yeah.
I know the Great Wall, for example, took up most of the last week plus, so.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to kick us off with our first game?
Sure. The first game on our list is Trailblazer, the John Muir Trail.
Yes, this was a Kickstarter. It came in, actually, I guess it just came in last year.
Early last year, though, I want to say, but I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah.
We've had it for a little bit, but not a huge long time. Not a long time.
And it's one we've been really excited to play because we love nature. We love hiking, Jane in particular. And the theme of this just really spoke to us.
Yep.
So what'd you think?
I really liked it. I think, first of all, it's a worker placement game. It's, which we really love worker placement. But thematically, I think this is the most thematic, like, hiking game that I've played.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I really enjoyed all the thematic touches, the weather impacts, everything about it. It integrated the weather well, it integrated the nature well, the birds, bird watching, visiting different, like, extra special natural sites and stuff like that, or lakes, or, waterfalls. Yeah. It's all in there, and it's really well integrated.
And so you're doing things like collecting water and collecting food, and I can't remember what else.
I mean, those are the 2 big ones. You got to make sure that you can eat and drink every day.
Oh, I know. Those are like the big resources, and you've got to spend those to stay alive. But then you're also collecting like things that you saw, for example.
You collect
Earth, wind, and fire.
Yeah.
And then there was another, that's how I remember that.
And water. There's hydrology.
Yeah, earth, wind, and fire, and water. And then those resources are what you use to build your set. So, like if you see a bird, if it's a wetland bird, it's going to take probably more water and some land than something else. And it's your standard worker placement. Put out your workers, get some resources, collect enough to buy yourself a card that's going to be point scoring, either because it makes up a match set or because it's a special scenic area and it's a lot of points. But as Jane said, so thematic, so beautiful. The art in this is amazing. Really, really satisfying, worker placement game.
Yeah, when you think straight up worker placement, I'll say one thing about this game is that it was a little bit more of a learn than a standard worker placement game. And I'm not sure exactly why that is. I think there was just kind of a lot going on with the worker placements. You had like 10 different spaces you could go to. You could hike. You could visit a special site. You can collect a resource. You can gather bird photos or whatever you're doing with the birds, which is kind of a set collection mechanism, which is nice. I love set collection, so that was good. And then you can go to the lodge after you've hiked a certain distance on the trail. You can go to this lodge and collect resources to feed yourself or to, I don't know.
And the thing is, you can't win unless you get to the end of the trail. If you're still somewhere stuck in the middle of the trail at the end of the game, you can't win. Now,
which we kind of, I think there was one game where you were having trouble. We forgot a rule. There was an important rule that we forgot where you can take, what were they called? The tokens that you could take?
Like
hazard?
Distress tokens.
Distress tokens or something like that. They're called something else, I think. But that's the idea. And it's like you take the token and
there's ways to get rid of them, but if you take them, you could move forward. You could get unstuck, which was really important, and I kind of forgot about it.
And you lose points if you don't get rid of them at the end. So
here's what I would say is we have a number of games that are like nature themed, type games, right? And then we've got a number of, and they're all beautiful, and they give us all the feels for hiking. And then we've got a number of worker placement games, which are, you know, sort of dry Euro. There's some theme pasted on, and it's worker placement, and we really love that mechanism and enjoy it. This brought them both together. I think it's the best of the bunch of that we've seen of these like new nature games that brings together all of the mechanisms that we love in our dry Euros, plus the wet theme, literally sometimes, plus the theme of the nature and the hiking.
It does a good job of that. So it's a really good game, and it's definitely a keeper. We're keeping it in the collection. Yeah. In fact, after we played it, the Arizona Trail game is on Kickstarter right now from the same people. We went ahead and backed that.
Yeah. So. And it's probably a top 100 for me. I'm not sure how high. It's not going to be like top 10 or 20. It's probably going to be in the, I don't know, bottom half of that if it actually makes it. Yeah. But I think it really could.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I think it's definitely my top 100, but I'm not sure where. I'll have to figure that out. So the next game on the list is from quickly becoming one of my favorite designers. I mean, I already love her start out game, Wingspan. That's Elizabeth Hargrave. That's the Fox Experiment. I didn't love the theme of this going in. It doesn't really, I don't know, there's something about the sort of
domestication of wild animals
that's a little bit iffy, and the treatment of the foxes wasn't great, but during the real experiment. But the game, I really love the sciencey nature of this game.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
It really does have that sciencey thing going really well. And that's one thing she does really well with all her games, is they really incorporate the scientific elements of the aspect of usually nature that she's exploring.
Yeah, I mean, so you're breeding these foxes, and you're trying to get them to be more friendly. So you're breeding for like the traits that are favorable. And, you know, when you breed foxes that have the traits you're looking for, you know, you score points. And as you bring two foxes together, that have, one might have this and one might have that, and then their offspring, of course, have both of those things. So by the end, you're rolling giant handfuls of dice. Oh my God, it is so satisfying.
It's very satisfying.
I love that.
So definitely you want to have a dice tray for this game for each player, if you can, because you're rolling like 14 dice at the end of the game, and it's just like they go everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that. This game, again, it makes sense. The mechanics of the game fit the theme. It's not just pasted on. It's logical. Like you said, it's scientific. It fits the science to it. And that is something that is really something we really like.
I think the one thing that may be a negative on this game is the strategy's a little linear.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty obvious what direction you want to go with the strategy. And it's still fun.
Yeah.
It's still really fun. Rolling all those dice. It's, you know, dice, you're matching traits on the dice and trying to get as many as you can. And then that unlocks, you know, a really good fox, which gets you points. But then the really good fox gives you more dice in the next round if you're able to get it as a parent. And it's just like, and it goes through multiple generations of this breeding and stuff. And it's really interesting to look at genetics, and that's just neat. I know we're kind of talking about the same thing over and over a little bit, but it's just really well done.
Yeah. And you get to name your foxes, which is also very important.
Which is fun.
And I agree with you. It does, the strategy's linear. With something like Wingspan, there's so much more variability in the strategies you can take. I know people talk about the egg strategy, but let's just ignore that for a minute because we don't play that way. We like to have fun with our games.
They kind of fixed that a little bit, although we haven't played the 2-player variant. Right.
Well, we just naturally ignore the egg because it's so boring.
Was it Oceania that kind of fixed that?
I think so.
I don't know, but
this does not have that. There's one path. There's one path.
Yeah.
So that I think is a negative. It's not a game I think I would want to play every week. Right. However, it is a game I would play over and over again over a long period of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What's next?
Good choice. So after the Fox Experiment, we went ahead and played another game about nature called Petrichor.
And this has been on our shelf of opportunity for a long time.
Yep.
It's a 2018 game. It was a Kickstarter, so I think we got it a little bit later than that, late in 2018.
I really am not sure.
I don't know. Well, we got married in 2018 and played almost no games. Then Jane got sick in 2019, and so we just got this to the table.
I mean, I got sick in 2015,
Well,
but
yeah,
I got sicker
really
and sicker.
sick, yeah.
So it's kind of like in 2019, it just went downhill hardcore. But it is what it is. So anyway, on a positive note, Petrichor was a pretty great game, but not necessarily our cup of tea.
Yes.
So we're a little torn. So like Fox Experiment, we're keeping in the collection.
Yeah.
Trailblazer, we're keeping in the collection. We're a little torn on Petrichor. We're keeping it in the collection for now.
Yeah.
It's very pretty.
It's so pretty.
And it is an excellent game.
It is.
A really, really excellent design. It's just the game style's not our... It's very aggressive.
Yeah, it's very head-to-head. It's very...
Very chessy.
Very chessy. One thing that still drives me crazy...
That's an adjective, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing that drove me crazy is that you vote on which mechanism is going to score.
Score, but also... It's which mechanism is going to... At the end of each round, there are 2 weather effects that take effect.
Thank you.
And you vote on which weather effects are going to take effect, which also affects scoring, but that's what you didn't like about it.
Right. So you have to... You're kind of voting for, like, what is the best thing for your game. Except... It's scores. Whoever has the most pieces in the winning mechanism scores, and that's a lot of points. And so you actually have to abandon voting for what is going to work for your game, and instead vote to try to make sure that you don't lose out on those points. Like, I was just trying to break even on that. Yeah. To me, that is broken. I hated that. I thought that was a terrible thing.
At the same time, it gave you a reason to vote. So I see the mechanism reason for it. Like, it gave you the incentive to vote a different way than just voting for win every time or something.
I guess, but I think it would be so much more interesting, and I think it is interesting to be trying to get one of the things to happen over another one because it works for your game. So that I thought was broken. I think we also put in all of the expansions at one time. That
ended up being a bit much.
That was a bit much.
Just to manage, to be honest.
Yeah.
And also hard to see. It became hard to see everything because the tiles became so crowded with stuff.
And maybe that's not the way you're supposed to play. Maybe you're supposed to play one at a time.
We like to try that, and you'll see later we talk about another game where that kind of was an issue.
Yeah.
So that's us, though. That's kind of us.
Yeah.
That's like a thing we do.
But in general, it's very clever. You're trying to, make sure that your cards are going to score, that you're not overtaken by another player on that card that you want to score, because if they overtake you, they're going to score more points. There was one card that if you had the second most raindrops on it, you actually scored really well versus the first. And I kind of snuck in on that the first game a couple of times, which was kind of cool. But in general, it's too head-to-head, like the other player can totally destroy your strategy that you've been building up to for a while, which I hate. And it's just, I don't know. It's so pretty and it's such a good game. But
I think it might be better with more players. Or we play everything with 2, obviously, and so that's one thing. And then, but I want to also echo that on this game is another game where I think the science is well integrated.
Yes.
You got like the ant card you can play with, and the ants move around and carry the water with them and stuff like that. And the way the clouds work, and the clouds that came with the deluxe edition are so cool. They have little stands. They're like what you use for spaceships in like a deluxe sci-fi game like Eclipse, but they're clouds. Yeah, we'll put a picture in.
But that's also another thing, is that without those, I don't know how you
would manage all that stuff.
The cards would be full of stuff. They would be almost unreadable. At some point, like the clouds, you're putting raindrops in them until they get too full and then they sort of spill over. Like, I think if you had just a little flat thing, they would just naturally sort of fall off the the cloud? Like, how would you know it was there before versus
not,
after?
It's a bowl. It's like a bowl.
Okay.
So they wouldn't fall off, but it would cover so much of the tile. I think that'd be the concern for me. Whereas the deluxe clouds allowed you to move the clouds off of the tile and put stuff underneath.
Really key.
So that was really key,
Yeah.
That was very nice. And I definitely, if you like that kind of game, like that kind of like a little bit of aggressive player on player, and a lot of people do, and that's great.
I think you'll like this game.
Petrichor is fantastic.
Yeah.
It is a fantastic game. It's got great natural elements. It's got really pretty deluxe components, so get the deluxe. I would really highly recommend the deluxe.
Yeah, but definitely, like you said, it's a great game if you like the player on the player. If you don't mind like having somebody come in and destroy your strategy, or doing that to somebody else, you know, it's a really good game. But I just don't know. I don't know if it's going to make it in ours.
It just may not work for us, just because of the style of play.
Yeah,
but that's I think otherwise it hits.
Yeah.
I mean, it hits on most other tones. It's the style of play. Like, you didn't like the voting. I didn't mind the voting. I didn't have an issue with that, but I know you didn't like it. So, all right. What's up next?
That's a great question. You got to tell me.
The Great Wall.
Oh, this was so good.
The Great Wall is pretty great.
Oh my God. This is going to be top 50 for me.
Yeah, me too.
So the Great Wall I think originally I thought this was going to be player on player, where somebody was like trying to beat out the other player, but it's not. You are playing, I don't know, competing generals, right? And you're trying to build the Great Wall and defend against the incoming hordes and collect enough resources to do that. It's worker placement, but it has this super, super cool worker placement mechanism where you start with a hand of 8 cards, and each card tells you exactly how many workers you're going to put out. 6 cards.
Yeah.
Is it really only 6?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tells you how many workers you're going to put out that round. But there's a middle row, and let's say I put out a card that says I get to play 4 workers that round. In the middle section, Jane and all the other players also get to put out workers. Yeah. And so they get to go as well. And so
what's key is the worker placement spots don't activate when you put your worker on them. They activate later. So it's the cumulative placement of everyone during that card play that determines what places activate and stuff like that. It's really neat.
And I think this had one of the better dummy player mechanisms.
Yeah, the dummy player worked out great. I was worried about it at first because, you know, it's more maintenance and stuff like that.
But it's one of those things, like a lot of games with 2 players, you've got to play with a dummy player because 2 people just don't have the number of bodies on the board or whatever to make it work. But whoever's the active player is controlling where those that dummy player workers go, which means that you can effectively, you know, fill up a spot that you wouldn't otherwise get to fill up. You can choose, you know, where they're going to go, and you can set yourself up for later, because when that dummy player goes, it will activate even if the spaces aren't full.
Yeah.
So I really like that. The whole thing was so good.
It's pretty nifty. So the dummy player gets their own turn too, and I think that's nifty. I think it all just works pretty seamlessly. And we'll talk a little bit about, I think the one thing that I had some issues with was when we, again, added in all these different expansion stuff, and it started to get fiddly, and the rules didn't have the expansion stuff in the flow of actions where they happen. And I didn't print out the right player aid from Board Game Geek to see that, because somebody had made one. So if I'd printed out the right one, I could have used that and followed. So after we played it, I did print out that one. We can put it in the box and for the future. But it's like there ends up being a lot to manage, which is, again, a little bit of a us problem because we threw everything in at some point. But we played it also, I want to say, we played it both competitive and cooperative, and it worked really well both ways. And it's a kind of competitive game that works well for us because it's basically a worker placement game.
Yeah. It's
basically, you are competing over spaces, but in a way that for the most part is not very aggressive.
Right.
So
it is there's a couple things that can be a little punishing if you're not the first player. You know, it costs a lot to go become the first player. And the first player has a real advantage. So you really, that's a little bit of a tension point, but that's a minor thing. The other thing I'll say,
probably more of an issue in 2-player than in 4-player or something.
The other thing I'll say is that with a lot of games, you feel like the base game is the starter game and it really doesn't start to hum until you get to the expansions. That is not the case here.
Yeah, there's hummed right away.
Well enough game. It's a 3.9 complexity on BGG. That's, I'd say, think I said it was a 4. That's fine. It does great without the expansions. You don't need them. I also think that you don't need the co-op version. It was fine. We enjoyed the co-op.
We enjoyed it. We only played the co-op once, and we kind of made some mistakes that made it a little easier and a little less tense than I think it would have been.
Yeah.
If we played it right.
That's probably true. It probably would have been more enjoyable because I like tough co-ops.
Yeah.
But again, like, I don't think that the competitive version is the kind of competitive version that I mind, right? It's not head to head. You're not coming in when I've been planning something for 3 rounds and like screwing me by
a little bit. That happened. That happened a little bit.
It happened once or
a couple
twice.
times about that. I heard it.
I can think of at least one time I did it. And that's also where the first player thing comes in. Like I'll be, if you are the last person to kill a monster, or if you have the most soldiers on it, you'll get, you get rewards. And the first player goes first. So I set up my turn to go and kill this monster, and my card was first, but you still went first in battle order.
Even though I was the second other player was her turn.
Even though it was my turn. And
I think you could almost house rule that. If it's your card, you should have priority.
Yeah.
On that. But I don't know. That might be a fix actually for that.
Yeah. That's a minor thing.
Just to mitigate, because I think the first player power is a little overpowered, and I think because it really gives you a lot of control, I think it's still incentive to do it outside of that. But I think for the worker placement activations, we could change that.
Yeah, I think that would help. But I mean, minor nitpicks. You played a card once wrong that would have been really overpowered if it had been right.
I made an adjustment that we think leveled it off, but we don't know.
Well, and that was fine. I mean, we played it wrong.
We both read it wrong, actually, because we both read it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we just did it wrong.
Absolutely.
So, and it really was about the timing of the card. So having that flow chart in front of you of the timing is really important. So if you have the Great Wall or are thinking of getting it, I definitely recommend going to Board Game Geek, getting like the, printing out a couple of the flow charts of the actions, so you don't have to have the rule book open the whole time.
And the table presence
is fantastic.
God, it's so good. You're building the wall. You literally build 3D wall sections. This was such a hit.
And the Black Powder expansion added these towers and these war machines.
There's a trebuchet. I love a trebuchet.
There's a cannon and a ballista. And,
oh my God.
So it's very exciting. There's a lot of good stuff going on. It's a really brilliant game. I think there's not a lot of negatives for me in this game. It's very complex, though. So if you're not into complex games, this is going to be too much for you.
But if you like a good heavy Euro game, so good.
Fantastic. Yep. So,
absolutely. Winner.
So Great Wall is a keeper. We managed to condense things down into a box and a half. And
well, the second box is
thin box. So a regular box and a thin box.
That's my complaint. That is my one complaint. Is that
we got to take the inserts out.
The box is not big enough. You've got these 3D pieces that don't fit in the box.
Yeah.
There's like, you put together these wall sections, right? They don't fit in the box.
Well, the wall sections kind of do. Well, not with the insert. We had to take the insert out. And then the towers don't fit in the box at all. They kind of cause box lift.
Like, who wants to take those apart and put those together every time? Not only is that like gonna add to setup time, but eventually that is going to wear them down, like putting those slots in.
We took the inserts out and managed to get it on with a little bit of box lift. And we managed to work it with the main box and one skinny box.
And maybe they'll come out with a big box eventually, but that was bad planning. That box should have been just a little bit bigger from the jump.
Yeah, I think that would have worked better. And we also like to organize games a certain way, and I'm not sure the box was set up to organize them the way we want to organize them. Yeah. Like, I'm not sure, like, they had compartments for the different player pieces even if we use the insert, I'm not even sure my pieces would have fit in a compartment because I had these huge like tank things.
Yeah.
They would not have fit. I don't know. They were huge.
Yeah.
They were awesome. They were awesome. I did like how the different war machines in this all acted differently and uniquely, and they fit the war machine itself.
I want to go put it on the table and play right now. Like I would if you were like, let's go play. Yes. Although we just put.
Yeah, we don't have a table right now.
We don't. They're all full. They're all full of other games. But
yeah, something to look forward to is we just set up Jiangnan.
I've got to look up how to pronounce
Life
it.
of Gentry. So we're very excited for that. And then we have on this table, we always have a campaign game on one table, regular Euro kind of game on another table. That's where Jiangnan is. We have Tales from the Red Dragon Inn on the campaign table. And then we have a small game table. We just took that down, but that's too small for the Great Wall.
But this is actually a perfect segue into our next game.
Our last game is a small game.
And it was on that third table. And that is
French Quarter.
Yes, by Ben Pinchback.
Matt Riddle, and there's a third guy designing that, and that is Adam Hill. He's been in the last couple designs. Okay. He was also in the Motor one.
Oh, I'm sorry, Adam,
Motor
for not
City.
mentioning you before.
But yeah, I think we got used to saying Ben Pinchback and Matt Riddle and confusing them with Ben Rosset and Matthew O'Malley here and there.
Yeah.
And then, this is from the series of heavy roll and write games that they do: Fleet the Dice Game, Three Sisters, Motor City, and now
French Quarter,
which is about New Orleans and being a tourist in New Orleans, which we both have been at one point in time or another. So it was super fun.
Yes, I just went last summer. And yeah, I mean, they did it again. It's a wonderful game.
It's wonderful. It's my favorite.
Yeah, I think it is probably my favorite too.
I'm definitely saying it's my favorite. It's a little more linear than the others, which I think work towards it being my favorite because I think that limits maybe the replayability long term, but it means it feels a little less frantic. Like, I'm marking this over here, I'm marking this over here, I'm marking this over here. There is that. That happens, but it's a little more easier to follow.
Three Sisters is a wild ride.
Yeah,
just
Three
wild.
Sisters is really fun, and that's
really
probably
fun.
My second favorite, which is weird, but it bothers me a little bit, the franticness.
Yeah, and you're right. This is definitely a little bit more linear.
It's like the fun part, but also the negative part. Like, it's fun because you get the bonus, and you get the bonus, and you get the bonus, and you get the bonus. It's frantic because you're like, over here, over here, over here, over here.
Yeah, and this definitely has less discrete like sections, right? So Three Sisters has the whole thing at the bottom. It's got the garden up here. It's got the orchard. It's got the other track down here. There's something happening over here.
There's more areas.
Right? There's like all these different areas.
This has the map.
Yep, and then
the street tracks,
and then a street track, right? And then I mean, there's a couple other things happening, but it just feels more...
The performers, yeah.
I mean, it just feels more contained, right? Because the streets, you've got your 6 streets or whatever. But it still hits that sweet spot of getting bonuses and bonuses on bonuses. And then, I don't know, I just really liked how it works. And I liked the map and moving around the map. And yeah, and I love
it's got your sort of... It's almost a rolling move, but it's a flipping move.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a little piece that you're moving around the map, which I think is different from the others, which is kind of cool because you're exploring the map. Your little person, or it's not really a person, it's a whatever. I had a cocktail glass. Very New Orleans, but you're moving that around the map, and then you're marking off those buildings as having been seen, which I think is a new element in their games. The other thing I'll say about it is that the second line is pretty cool. It's this whole other thing that can happen where you've got your second line, which is, going around the city and visiting buildings. And the more buildings that you have marked off on that route, the more you score. And that doesn't happen every turn. So,
and it's dice drafting, which is a fun mechanism. It's, and it's got with the flipping of cards and there's dice. There's 5 colors of cards. Well, in 2 players, 5 colors, and in more players, there's 6. And you flip over a card, and the decks are round counters. Okay, and then you roll dice, and you put dice on each card, and you draft the dice from the cards. You do the actions on the cards. You move on the map. You do the action on the map. So you're doing multiple things in a round. So every turn is satisfying.
You know what actually is very unique about this from the other ones is that when you move your piece to a building and you mark that building off, you have to put a number in there, and the number has to match the dice. And if the dice and then the number that you put in has to match the dice, but it also has to be within 1 plus or minus 1 of all the buildings around it. So you can kind of get yourself in trouble that way. That is both annoying, but also an interesting puzzle. It's new and unique. Like, they have not done anything like that in any of their other games that I can think of, unless I'm misremembering something. But that's a whole other level of spatial puzzle happening with this. Is I have a 6. Where can I put a 6 that I'm not going to screw myself, because I have nothing but 2s and 3s on the board right now, and I can't put it anywhere near where I am, or else I'm going to be in trouble.
What's interesting about this game is it's dice drafting like that, and like she said, the map is really hard to logistically match all the numbers, but there is no dice manipulation, but it still works.
Yeah.
It still works, and I think that's really it's designed well enough that it works.
It's kind of a testament to their design skills. There's a couple wilds that you can get for like, where sometimes you're just like, all right, I'm gonna.
But there's not usually in a game like this you have a lot of +1, -1 opportunities or something, and there's none of that.
Yeah, there's none.
You have to play the number, or you can use, there's 3 wilds at most you can get.
Yeah.
So I guess that's dice manipulation, or manipulation of writing the numbers, but
really clever. The more I think about it, they're just such good game designers. They really are. And this is, again, it has a lot of the things that you love about the first 3. Like you said, the combo on combo, the getting stuff, that sends you over there, and then I get something else, and then I go over there and I get something else. But it is very, very different from the others. It's a very different game. There's different mechanisms, some different things happening on the board. So really,
roll, flip, and right.
I don't know. If you like their games, I think you're going to like this.
Yeah, it's a good game. And I think this might be, because I think it is a little more linear. It's like people for whom Fleet the Dice game or Three Sisters is a little too much. This might actually work for them. It's not as light as something like, I don't know, Trek 12 or something like that. But it works.
But let's talk about the expansions.
They didn't change much.
No, I didn't like the Mayor's expansion. The Mayor's expansion blocks off a street for a turn.
Yep.
So every round you flip a card and the mayor's having a private party or something, and you put these little barricades on the street, and so like you can't put anything on Bourbon Street or Decatur Street that round. That's just annoying. I didn't like that. We found ways around it, but I thought it was unnecessarily restrictive, and maybe that is in case you are playing this over and over and over again to give yourself an extra challenge. But
it does add some variation, so I think it is probably useful for replayability.
Yeah. Then the other one was just personal goals, which
were okay, but they didn't add a lot to the game.
Yeah, exactly. So. It added 8 points to my score. Still lost all 3 games.
So anyway, that's French Quarter. So those are the new games that we put on the table in the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Yep.
3 weeks or so. And we're trying to make a concerted effort this year to play as many new games as possible. We'll probably break it up at some point to play a bunch of Uwe games or something like that. But
some of those are new.
Some of those are new as well, but she's looking at them. So yeah, you get the idea. So we'll be playing a bunch of new games. So.
Uwe Palooza.
So let us know what you think. If you played any of these games, I don't know. If you have any questions about the games or any thoughts, let us know below in the comments. And thanks for watching. Remember,
every day that you game
is a holiday. Bye, everyone.
Bye.